Welcome back to Decades of Dominance. Today we're going to talk about the running back rankings. Are we going PPR or half PPR, Sean?
Full PPR.
Well, PPR. Okay, we're going to look at the tiers and the rankings. So in tier one, we've got McCaffrey, Barkley, Elliott, Cook, and Kamara, as a lot of sites do, maybe in a slightly different order. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, the top three are pretty much locked in, although I have seen Kamara ranked above Elliott in some PPR rankings. Um, I have Cook also ahead of Kamara. He finishes the running back two last year, so if he's healthy when he's playing, um, he's just as good as Elliott at least. But I definitely have him behind the big two, but they're all in the same tier.
Yeah, I read that Kamara had said he tore his knee in week 6 last season, and he's rehabbed it. He only had 6 touchdowns, but he did have 81 receptions. So if Kamara has positive touchdown upside, then I could see why people are ranking him higher than even Elliott or Cook. But really, I think if you end up with any of these five, you've got a great running back one, and it's whoever you get. If you're drafting in the first round, anywhere in the first 6 spots, you're happy to get any one of these guys.
Yeah, and Kamara's had exactly 81 receptions all three of his years in the league, which is definitely sets him up for a nice floor. Also, in a quote down year last year, he was still RB8. So,
Right, where he did have that injury.
if you're drafting him fourth or fifth or even third overall, and you get RB8 production, that's not going to kill you.
Right, agreed. Um, some I've seen some sites have Dalvin Cook as low as tier two. I mean, I guess there's still some concerns of him holding out. I don't get it. He was fantastic last year. Maybe the injury risk is something, but I like Cook in there as well.
Yeah, he's still unhappy with his contract situation, so there's that risk. And, you know, as much as I love what he did last year, the fact remains is that was his first healthy year. He's missed time every year previous, so he does have a significant injury risk. And his handcuff, Madison, you have to you have to use a premium pick to get him because he's going pretty high.
Right. In tier two, you start with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, and Josh Jacobs. This is a little bit more diverse of a tier. What caused you to bump the rookie up to the top of this tier?
Same thing as everybody else. The announcement of Damian Williams that he was opting out this year. He was really the only obstacle standing in Clyde's way. And again, in PPR format, you go with the guy that catches receptions. And even before Williams vacated his role, Clyde was still going to be the pass catching guy. He's like one of the best pass catching running backs to come out of college in quite some time. And to go into that Andy Reid offense, you can make an argument that he should be in tier one. He is solidly at number 6 in my book. And I'd still take him ahead of any other position, including Michael Thomas.
I and Derrick Henry, he would be obviously top tier if he caught passes, but he doesn't. Um, just a ton of carries, a ton of touchdowns, monster opportunity, and he really hasn't been hurt even though he's been used so much. Joe Mixon's a potential holdout, so there's the Dalvin Cook risk there. I like that Clyde Edwards-Helaire moving up bumps Miles Sanders and Kenyon Drake down, making it more likely for me to get one of those two guys because I like both of them. Aaron Jones is another guy who he's going to have regression, but he's getting bumped down. So he's getting bumped down to the point where he might be a bargain. Eckler is the same way. Nick Chubb is basically a Derrick Henry who has to compete with a far better option off the bench. So I would be less happy to get Josh Jacobs or Nick Chubb in this tier because they say they want to. You said they said they want to get Jacobs more receptions, but to your point, they do nothing but draft guys that are going to catch the ball, right? On the
Yeah,
Raiders.
draft and sign. Um, they re-signed Jalen Richard. They brought in Devontae Booker in addition to drafting Lynn Bowden. So actions speak louder than words. Yeah, like you said, a lot of people have Chubb and Jacobs ranked higher, and on pure talent, they probably should be. But the fact is, they don't catch passes. Same thing, with Derrick Henry. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee didn't start finding a way to get Henry more involved in the passing game. I mean, he's such a fantastic player, getting the ball in his way in as many different getting the ball in his hands as many different ways as possible. You think would be a no-brainer, but until you see it, you can't assume they're going to do it. And they haven't really talked about doing it. I don't know. Maybe they're going to reveal that once the regular season starts. But I have Henry solidly at 7 as well. With him and Clyde could easily pop up into tier 1. And again, I would definitely take all 7 of those running backs before any other position.
Yeah, and I could see Miles
That's
Sanders.
probably the break right there.
And of the rest of these guys, I could see Miles Sanders or Kenyon Drake being two that if things fall the right way, end up being guys you wish you had taken tier 1. They could easily compete for the top 3 spots if the season breaks a certain way. Drake proved he could do it at the end of last season. Miles Sanders is supposed to get more opportunity this season, and he again proved he could do it at the end of last season. So those are 2 guys that I feel like I'd be happy to get towards the bottom of tier 2. But I would probably be happy to get Josh Jacobs at the very bottom of the tier. Nick Chubb scares me because he's not going to keep Kareem Hunt on the bench, as you've said in other videos. So I think the downside for Chubb. I mean, the talent is there. Depending on game script, he might not do it for you every week. And he's sort of similar to some of the guys we have in tier 3. Let's move on to tier 3. You've got Leonard Fournette, Todd Gurley, James Conner, Chris Carson, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, and David Johnson. These are all guys with either personality or injury concerns or things like that. I mean, would you definitely take a Nick Chubb over a Fournette,
Yes.
given the receptions?
Yeah, there's no way that Fournette uh, repeats the 76 receptions he had last year. They brought in Chris Thompson for that role. And it's obviously very concerning that the Jaguars seem to want to move on from Fournette. Apparently they tried to trade him and there were no takers. If he did get traded, that would probably enhance his value depending upon what kind of committee he landed in. But, you look at his numbers last year, he finished RB9. You think he should definitely be ranked higher than this, but I actually just bumped him down from tier 2 to tier 3 because there's just so much risk and unknown. That's pretty much the theme of tier 3 is these are all high risk, high upside guys. These are all former tier 1 guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so of these guys, 15 through 21, when I look at them, I guess I would say the least risk, I would probably put Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, and then maybe Chris Carson, as far as they don't have. I mean, there are injury concerns. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, Chris Carson has some minor health concerns. Come to find out, the time he missed from Seahawks camp was due to a death in the family. So that's unfortunate for him, obviously. But it's not an injury.
Right.
So Carson, I think, is definitely the safest bet in this tier. And because he's not the big name that the other guys are in this tier, uh, he might give you your best value depending upon the knowledge of the drafters that you're going with. I was thinking a little bit more about that question that you asked, like, would you definitely draft Chubb over Fournette? And the answer is probably yes, but I don't want to draft Chubb. So, like, in the range where Chubb's going, I'm looking at other positions.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like if you're on the swing, maybe you pick a wide receiver or a tight end there and hope that in 3 or 4 picks you can get one of these guys in tier three who may have the same points as Chubb by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Um, I mean I certainly like Melvin Gordon in tier three. Other than being on a new team, I think he's an upgrade over Lindsey. Lindsey can't pass block. Melvin Gordon's a good pass catching back. I would expect him to have a better year than he had last year. Le'Veon Bell also, he knows the Jets offense now. He hasn't been hurt. He has something to prove. I agree with you putting David Johnson at the bottom of this list, and they're similar to Todd Gurley because Todd's got the arthritis in his knees, but it seems like I'm a little bit less concerned about Todd Gurley's injury and his level of performance than I am about David Johnson. Uh, he was supposedly healthy last year, right? And he got outplayed and pulled.
Well, he got hurt and then never got his job back. David Johnson did. As far as just injury concerns, I'm much more concerned with Todd Gurley's uh, health than I am David Johnson's health. I'm more concerned with David Johnson's diminishing talent than I am with Todd Gurley's talent. But both of them, I mean, the reason why they're in this tier is they both landed in excellent situations if they
True.
have if they can take advantage of it. David Johnson, obviously, Bill O'Brien's going to look to prove that he wasn't such an idiot for making that trade. So they're going to try their best to make David Johnson successful to make up for trading DeAndre Hopkins for him and some draft picks.
Yeah, and that brings us down to tier four, and these are guys who could potentially end up being RB2s for you or even an RB1, but there's a lot more risk. You got Melvin Ingram, uh, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Kareem Hunt, Cam Akers, Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, and Ronald Jones in tier four.
Yeah, this is and I've been doing a lot of mocks lately, and even though some guys higher on this ranking list have been available, I find myself really wanting to pick Kareem Hunt. Um, I think he's got standalone value. Like he's going to have a role when Chubb's there. And if for some reason something happened to Chubb, like all these guys are in timeshares. Okay. If something happened to the other running backs involved in timeshares with these guys, which one of them would go first? 1,000% it's going to be Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt becomes a tier one running back if something happens to Chubb. He's got that level of talent. So, I find myself, even though,
Well,
guys
yeah.
like Montgomery are still on the board, I find myself clicking on Hunt. So I think that's, make sure that you guys do mocks to, even though, once you make your draft boards, do mocks and see how your boards work out and, move players around in your rankings accordingly.
No, I think if you're looking for a guy like Kareem Hunt, the for those arguments you made, the same arguments you could make for DeAndre Swift. Granted, he's a rookie, he's learning a new team. You actually have him one spot higher. But if something happens where DeAndre Swift becomes the primary back, then it's the same kind of situation as Kareem Hunt. He's going to catch a lot of passes. He's the primary pass catching back, and if he becomes the main back, same kind of situation. Same thing for Cam Akers, who showed he can do it behind the bad line in college. We talked about these two in our rookie draft.
Yeah, I was going to say we already talked about a lot of these guys in our rookie draft series, and also I ended up drafting a couple of them in our best ball series. So make sure that if you guys haven't watched those videos yet, you'll want to go back and do so.
Yeah, so in this of these tier 4 guys, I would say I'm the most concerned about maybe Ronald Jones and Devin Singletary. I think they could potentially get outplayed and benched by Vaughn and Zach Moss. Melvin Ingram, actually, at the top of the tier, is another guy that kind of scares me because I think J.K. Dobbins may be more talented and the better runner. So, if you draft Melvin Ingram by the end of the year, what do you have?
Yeah, I have Ingram at 22 here. I think that's about where he's going to go. He was running back 11 last year, but obviously the drafting of Dobbins just crushed his value. I think that there's a good chance he could start off here, but by the end of the year, he's probably not going to be in the top 25 running backs.
Yeah, and if you pay this kind of draft,
he's one where I would let somebody else draft him.
Right? If you pay this kind of draft capital for Melvin Ingram, and then you're going to need players that you can count on in the playoffs, assuming you make the playoffs, I would get more and more worried. Just like with like last year, if you drafted Nick Chubb, you got a supreme value in the first half of the season, and then when Kareem Hunt was eligible to return, the value went downhill from there. So let's take a look at the best of the rest.
Well, I was just going to say real quick, a lot of these guys, like if Melvin Ingram is the best guy, is the top running back left on my board, and I'm on the clock, then I'm probably looking at another position, like we said before. So yeah, the rest of the guys after, so tier 4 takes us all the way down to running back 30. After that, they're all a crapshoot. So
Yeah.
I just listed some guys, not even in the exact order that I would take them, but I just listed some guys that, don't draft mediocrity.
Do you want to go down that list of the guys that you think, so after you go through tier 4, go ahead and move down this list for guys that you think have tremendous upside and league winning potential.
So if you need a guy to have a high floor because you drafted a lot of risk in the beginning of your draft, James White is probably your guy. He's going to continue to be a PPR machine, even with the change of quarterback, I believe. J.K. Dobbins is by far the most talented, quote, backup running back in the league. He's got tier 2 potential at least once he takes over for Melvin Ingram. Gibson is very intriguing even before Geis was released, and now that he is, he's definitely you don't want to count on him, but if you're looking for somebody to stash on your bench, that's your guy because he could become a starter. I still think even though Ronald Jones has the height, I still think Keyshawn Vaughn is the most talented running back in Tampa. I think Zach Moss is the more talented running back in Buffalo. Alexander Madison and Tony Pollard have both shown that once the guy ahead of them goes down, that they can produce near the same level. So again, I'd rather take a guy like that than someone like Kerryon Johnson or a Marlon Mack.
Right. And then Evans is in that category too.
Yeah. Justin Jackson, or if it's Josh Kelly, whoever that second Charger running back is, that's going to produce some points because I'm not sure Austin Eckler can handle being an every down back, although I had similar reservations about McCaffrey early on in his career, and obviously I was very, very wrong. So since I took Eckler in our best ball draft a month or so ago, I'm hoping I'm as wrong about Eckler as I was about McCaffrey, but I think whoever that Charger running back to is someone who has standalone value and also handcuff value if you have Eckler. And then Evans is a nice handcuff behind a workhorse Derrick Henry. He's also a very different running back. He could catch passes, although Tennessee hasn't really explored that option with anybody else they've had on their roster. But
Yeah, and I would say if you have Dalvin Cook, if you have Ezekiel Elliott, if you have Eckler, if you have Derrick Henry, then you should look to try to get Madison, Pollard, Jackson, or Evans, whoever's the corresponding handcuff, probably a round or two before where you expect them to go, because that's your season right there. If you counting on Elliott and he gets hurt, but you have Pollard, then you're fine. So I would bump them up at least a round to make sure that you don't get them swiped from you, maybe 2 rounds, because that just protects you. That protects your high-level first-round investment. Now, with Zach Moss and Keyshawn Vaughn, it's a little bit different because those guys could potentially be the running back one on both of those teams. Matt Breida is in here as well. He could potentially be the most productive running back for the Dolphins. So, and he catches passes. Yeah, so I agree, though, with White, Dobbins, and Gibson being intriguing prospects at the top of this list, and Breida being there as well.
yeah,
Once you
the
get
other
beyond
thing
this point,
I want to say real quick about the handcuffs, because again, if you guys watched our best ball series, I did end up drafting Elliott and Eckler. But because of the best ball format, first of all, those two have the same buy, and then if I had to spend roster spots on their handcuffs with the same buy, that would have made that very difficult. But I had more talented running backs fall to me much later than I thought they should, like Cam Akers and
right?
especially Swift, where he fell to me. So
Yeah, check out our best ball draft series to see what we're talking about there.
yeah, if you can draft guys in tier 4 instead to back up these guys, don't leave those tier 4 guys off your roster just because you're saving a roster spot for a handcuff.
Yeah, and we're gonna wrap it up here, but I want to leave you with this thought. Sean has hit this point repeatedly. The depth in top running backs is just less, and the availability to get a good running back off waivers is just less. Think about this: we're not through 40 players, and if you don't have 2 or 3 running backs by this point, and I would honestly say 3, by the time all of these guys are gone, there's not much left.
I would say 3 at the absolute bare minimum. I want to have 4 out of those first 30 guys to feel comfortable, especially know your system, especially if I'm in a league that starts 2 running backs and you can start a running back in the flex spot. Anytime you have that option, the teams that can put a decent running back in the flex spot are always going to be the better teams in the league.
Right, and that's why we did running backs first. Stay tuned because our next video is going to feature tight ends. That's another position where the available options fall off rapidly compared to quarterback and wide receiver. Anything else you want to add before we conclude this video, Sean?
No, I think we've said what we need to say.
Signing out, Decades of Dominance.